Hello, everybody, again. I just finished what I thought was my entire part 2 tutorial video, but then I realized when I went to name that second Flutter synth and I hit the number 2, that had been a hotkey that I assigned in my recording software OBS to stop my recording. So I, like an idiot, continued for another 40 minutes, realizing at the end that I had only recorded up to naming that Flutter synth. So I guess I'm just going to play you what I did end up with, and then I'll sort of address the things I talked about and sort of reverse engineer what's going on here. But anyway, here's this track. So at that point, we're gonna do a drop. I'm gonna do that in another video. Let's cover what I did. So after I had this Flutter synth named, I started. So let's see. I would have had all of these things. I started writing a melody. So essentially my instructions or my advice for what I was thinking writing a melody was 1, using my imagination, 2, using the notes from the scale that we wrote the chords with and are writing this music with as a starting point. So that was the key of E major. We have essentially four black keys in that. We've got F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and D sharp. Then the other information are the chords we're moving through. We were moving through E major, C sharp minor, G sharp minor, and B major. So a lot of the notes from those different chords are good starting places. So first measure, I went E, F sharp, E, 1, 2, 1 in the scale. And then the next measure, it's a C sharp minor chord, so we get C sharp, E, and G sharp in that. So I don't use a C sharp or an E. I use the 5th from that note. That's the note for the following chord, which is then when I bring that in, sort of varying the phrase. And then finally, last measure over the B major, we've got B, D sharp, and F sharp. So I'm using 2 scale tones and walking down. All right. Then I basically built a pluck. So basically just like all the other sounds I've built, I had the oscillators, went through the different wet positions, and then I used the envelope down here to change the attack of this instrument and release, sustain, so that I get that pluck sound, which is this. Then you're hearing some delay and reverb. All right. Oh, and then finally I did basically a notch of one specific harmonic from the sound that is a lot of like the ping, the attack. All right. Then I used the noise oscillator to play a user imported sample. So I was saying that the noise oscillator in Serum is unique in that we can import whatever samples we want. I only have a few here. I've got some kicks, some snares. Those are great for building 808s or different hits. And then I've got a vocal one shot. I then used, I turned on key tracking, and then I used the pitch knob to basically move the pitch of this vocal around until it rang somewhere I was happy with the other notes that I'm playing. And then with key tracking, that note's going to change every time the MIDI notes change by the same semitone relationship as the actual keyboard. All right, so with all that being said, this is what I came up with. We also added a pad. All right, let's play that. Cool. And then you're hearing some filter automation, basically a a high cut. I always get them backwards. A high cut, basically introducing the higher frequencies from the sound into the main section where that filter's completely open. All right, let's talk about this layer. I took the MIDI and I moved it up an octave. Then I basically slightly manipulated the patch that we were on, primarily in the effects chain. So I added a lot more delay, had it ping-ponging. So at this point in the verse 1, or whatever you want to call this, we get an extra cool layer. I really like that. It goes a long way to fill in the space and to give us some cool development. I almost like it enough to put it right from the beginning. The argument for doing it where I did is that we get some development throughout this section. The argument to bring it in from the beginning is that it sounds really good, and perhaps the section before that comes in isn't full enough. All right, from there we went into a build-up, pretty standard, nothing fancy. We're gonna do an 8-bar build-up, 8 measures. I essentially took the same first chord we started on, which was an E major, and I looped that so that the chords are repeating and not going through a 4-chord progression. This is really common across dance music genres. It creates tension because our ears are used to hearing the chords change. So when they don't change, it's leaves us on the edge of our seats, which is why when the drop comes, we get that sense of delivery. I then took the pluck and I looped the first 2 measures of that, and then I took the first note, which was an E, just like this other stuff, and put it on the first beat instead of the second quarter note, so that I could then repeat it and increase it. And then finally, I used the same serum patch that we used to print the riser that we used in the very beginning, and then I changed that so that it's essentially a new sound effect that we're using. It has some similar qualities to the first one, but it's still different. And then finally, so I made the build-up really 7 bars, so it cuts out for a full measure. Everybody probably who listens to this kind of music knows that sound when it cuts out and the DJ yells, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So I did that. I cut everything out, but then I bounced in place this E major chord from this measure from the 2 flutters and the pad. That allows me to treat it as one audio file. So in Logic, I used a fade and then controlled click on it and changed it from a fade to slowing down. That's what creates that slow down effect. Cool. And that's pretty much it. So the next video, like I said, we're gonna build a future-based drop. This should be pretty fun. I guess other things I said was, as always, the textbook that I keep referencing where I'm talking about the chords, melody writing, drum writing, is linked below. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, I would appreciate it. If you did grab a copy, shoot me an email with any questions. Let me know what you think. I'll link to my D.R.U alias so you can check out some of my releases from the past if you would like. I'm also on Spotify and all the other social media stuff. So anyway, till next time, signing off.